Well, good afternoon. This is Coach Jay on Saturday on Raise the Praise 100.com and Thrive Life Coach. It's our Saturday segment, and I want to come to you on this afternoon and just talk to you just for a little bit about active listening. Active listening. Everyone is talking, but no one is particularly listening. Um, I'm noticing it in the media. I'm noticing it in the educational system, the law enforcement system, the religious systems. Everyone is talking, but no one is listening. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about active listening so that we can kind of take some coaching from how to be a better listener. We all can improve with our listening. You must be able to not just hear the person audibly, but you got to be able to listen to them in a more um, interactive way. Sometimes we hear that people are speaking to us, but we are not actually listening to them. When you are an active listener, and that's the key phrase today, an active listener. When you're an active listener, you are paying attention and you are using all five of your senses: hearing, smell, taste, sound, all of those senses that encompasses the body. You are listening. You are very attentive when you are using all of your senses. You're even paying attention to verbal and nonverbal, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So when you're an active listener, you're very much engaging yourself with the person that's speaking to you. And all five of your senses, you're paying attention and you're using. Here are some tips to active listening. When you're an active listener, you must become neutral and must be non-judgmental. Allow that person to speak as openly as they need to or can in a setting and situation. Just be neutral and non-judgmental. Another tip to active listening is being patient. Being patient with the person, because whatever they may be saying may be a challenge for them to say or to talk about. Their emotions are running high. It's all over the page. And sometimes we can get impatient, or they may have a speech impediment. Whatever the case may be, we got to be patient in our listening. And there may be periods of silence as you are listening, and it may seem awkward, and sometimes people don't like that awkward gap when you are talking with someone and we feel like we don't want any silence to happen between us. But having a period of silence is a sign of patience, showing that you're listening to the person. Here's another tip to being an active listener. uh, you are giving verbal and nonverbal showing signs that you're listening. For example, like you may smile if the person is smiling, or there are things that they say that will cause you to smile. Don't just sit stone faced, mean mugging people, or sucking your teeth, or those types of things when sometimes someone is speaking and it's your time to listen. So show some smiling, give eye contact. Giving eye contact is very key and very important when you are having an opportunity to listen to someone. And as we're listening on the Zoom and a lot of meetings are happening this way, we really don't have to practice a lot of these active skills, active listening skills, because no one's looking at anyone. No one is looking a person eye to eye. So I think we're losing some social interactions as we are in this quarantine and pandemic, but it's something that I want us to begin trying to participate in with all of our senses, putting our whole self in as the listener and not the speaker. And you know, when you're used to being a speaker, sometimes listening is very, very hard. When you're a leader and a problem solver, you tend to want to just get to the punchline and not be an active listener. Sometimes it's not so much in what a person is saying, it's what they're not saying, but and all of their nonverbal and verbal cues. But if we're not an active listener, we're missing things. People are having conversations with us, people are present with us, and we don't even really know what they said. So we want to be active listeners. So smile, give eye contact, lean into the person, mirror some of the things that they may be doing, not mocking them, but giving feedback in terms of what they're saying. So, you know, sometimes say yes, say no. I have a friend that always tell me, let me know that you're hearing me, you know, nod of the head or something lets a person know that you are listening to them. Here's another tip to active listening. Ask questions. You know, when you don't understand what is being said or what's going on, ask questions. And it's critical when you ask those questions, because if you're constantly interrupting them, we're going to look at those a little further down. Those are not good, helpful tips or tools when you interrupt. But we must have some interaction where we do ask questions. So the timing of your question during sometimes when a person is speaking and talking is critical to showing that you're an active listener, or are you you're being hostile and defending your point. So to be an active listener, you know, ask questions, but know when the timing is right and how you present the question. Also, reflect what they said. Reflect back, reflect on what they said. You know, think. You know, I think I've said, I've used this phrase in many of my coaching sessions, think before you speak. I spoke on last Saturday of talking about how to handle anger. I've spoken times about having mindfulness. And so thinking before you speak was very instrumental into helping a person be able to communicate the things that they need to be heard. We all want to be heard. You know, what I say, I want a person to hear me and to value what I say. And if we are not reflective, we are so quick to speak and we're so quick to be offended and defend what we're saying or to fight against what someone else is saying, we're not actively listening. So we are not being productive communicators. And this is a critical time. We're going to have to be good communicators. I am mindful that as we go back to school, as we go back to work, as we having to go out into the community, we are facing some hostile situations. How am I going to handle this situation? That is the prayer and the question that is on the table today. And these discussions that we're having in this coaching session, it's going to give you food for thought and possibly give you some tools that you're going to think about this. And we may not perfect it right away, but my God is going to give you the opportunity to have some time to reflect, and that just in case you have to be in a situation to talk, we will be able to be better listeners. And because we listened, because we took some time out, I think that we'll be better communicators, because really the ultimate goal to be a better listener is to later become a better communicator, because you've listened, you've heard, you value what they said. You weren't in a rush to give an answer. You were neutral. You were patient. You were non-judgmental. So these are very, very great skills to have as you are an active listener. Here's another tip in helping you to be a better listener. Summarizing. Summarize what the person just said to you. You know, Oftentimes in coaching and counseling, we've heard people say, repeat back what they say. We call it mirroring. That's what we just mentioned. Or you could summarize what they say. Let me be clear. I understood you to say this. I understood you to mean this. I don't understand what you're saying, but we can summarize what the person has said. And that way you'll know if you've gotten it right in your listening. Active listening is to be desired and not to be a passive hearer. We don't want to be passive hearers. Yeah, like yeah, I heard you. Yeah, I know what you said. Yeah. The bottom line. Yeah. We don't want to be passive. And yes, I heard you talk, but I'm not even looking for solutions, or I don't really care about what you say. We don't want to be passive listeners. That's not a good listening skill to have, and that doesn't make us become great communicators with whoever is speaking to us. When we're an active listener, we're fully immersed in what the person is saying, so we can't be distracted. We can't be distracted when we are interacting with people. And I know we live in a world that we have learned to multitask. I'm not a good multitasker, but we have learned to be a multitasker. We can listen to music, watch TV, our favorite TV show, while working on the computer and texting someone. And so we have that, but we're distracted. So we really need to pay attention to people when they're talking, so that they can feel valued, so we can see them. You know, um, there's been news and communication that one of the Braxton sisters have attempted suicide, and they are saying that Nick Cannon also is saying that he wanted to leave this earth because as a result of some things that they said. And so those are some critical things that I think that we need to pay attention to, not because they're stars or celebrities, as we see people go through things that you don't know that they're dealing with, and they can seem like they got it together and they speak well, and they don't care about what anybody says. But we got to pay attention. Sometimes those are signs that they're crying out for help because of how they express their anger, or how they are always being hostile and combative to people. Are we listening? And then remember, I said the five senses. Are we in tune and intuitive when people are speaking? And are we paying attention to what they're saying, doing, what they're believing? Are we paying attention with all our senses? It's very important that we become fully immersed in what the person is saying. It helps us to gain trust between you and that person that's speaking. And so we want to have trust. Here's another benefit: it helps us to have understanding. My mother used to say this, and I'm a firm believer of this now: nothing beats an understanding. Understanding doesn't necessarily mean I wholeheartedly agree with someone, but when I can understand the context of why somebody believed or did what they did, that understanding can be critical into opening the door, and how I'm a listener, how I can help them or manage to help them, or bring about solutions and resolutions, because I got an understanding about what they were saying in their situation. So that's very critical tool or benefit. By being a good listener, it helps understanding, it helps you to gain trust, and it also shows support and empathy. It really makes you appear to be a helpful person, and not a person that is a hurtful person. So these are some great tools and tips and benefits that I want to give that to you, because I know we don't want our intentions what we think and how we feel about a person, to be misunderstood. And we don't want to be misunderstood, and we don't want to not be trusted. So these things are important for us to sit back and have these understandings, these tips and tools, and how to be a good listener. Doing this exercise, I realize that I certainly can improve my listening, and something to build upon. So we all can improve our listening skill. Now, here is a few um, unhelpful listening tools, and we may be guilty of some of them. These are not beneficial to us when we listen in this manner. Let me list a few of them. Um, it is not helpful. You're not a helpful listener when you are interrupting. A person can't get a word in edgewise. It just becomes very frustrating to that person speaking. They feel invisible. They don't feel heard. So constantly interrupting is not a good listening skill. No eye contact also causes mistrust, cause you to look dishonest, whether you may be being honest or not. But you have to understand what the perceptions are and how things look when you have no eye contact. When you rush the speaker, someone is speaking and you are already got your keys in your hand, or you're sitting erect on the table, straight posture, and you have this I'm ready to go for the door. So how you are interacting in your body language, rushing the speaker, or saying, okay, 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 while they're speaking, while they're talking, while they're giving instructions. I've been on some jobs, and sometimes a new kid on the block comes in, and you are trying to tell them how to do the job, or why the job has to be done a certain way, what are the benefits of doing the job, and the listener is constantly saying, okay, 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 okay. So it's a rushing, it's a horrible distraction, it's a horrible form of communication and listening. And listening is a form of communication. You may not be talking, but it is a form of communication. So rushing the speaker, also becoming distracted, everything that's going on. You notice the cat, the butterfly over there, the neighbor getting in their car, the neighbor going down the stairs while someone else is talking to you. You're noticing and commenting about everything else that's going on around you, and you're not focusing on listening to what the person is saying. So it is not a good listening tool. In fact, some of these things are downright rude that I'm talking about right now when I think about it, in terms of when you're not a good listener and you begin to display some of these behaviors. Topping the story with your story. Sometimes we're quick to want to fix, and we want to give an example, and we want to tell a story while the person's in the middle of hurting and trying to tell their story. Now that can be frustrating to people, and you can mean well, but it cannot come across as a good listener. So those are some things that we got to improve upon, and know that it's not always helpful to always minister and tell the story in the midst of them telling their stories. Husband and wives go through this a lot in relationships, where the woman comes home and she's telling her story and she's saying where she's having anguish, and the husband is quote unquote listening. But before the woman can get done, or as soon as she gets done, the husband then begins to tell her what that she needs to do. And so that woman may get frustrated and clam up and say, I just wanted to tell you, I'll fix it in my way, in my time, how I want to do it. So these are some bad listening skills, what I'm mentioning right now. Just be mindful of that. So I know that we're learning some things that are new, because I am, and I'm seeing where there are areas that I haven't always been the best listener. So, and then when we're ignoring what we don't understand, someone can give you a whole litmus test of what the situation, what the problem is, or what they want to do, or what they don't want to do, whatever the conversation is of the speaker. Um, what we don't understand about it, we ignore it. And you know how people will begin to focus on that one little thing that you said that was off or something, and they'll make that be the whole gamut of what you just spoke. You spoke 20 minutes about something, and they come out with one little bitty minute detail that they're focusing on that. And that can be very frustrating in the communication that's in the interaction that's going on between the speaker and the listener, where you ignore what you don't understand. And also, asking unimportant questions or asking unimportant questions about unimportant details. You know, someone could say, I took some Kleenex, but they may have had a handkerchief, and somebody will discredit the whole story that the person is speaking because they're going to say they used a handkerchief, but they said Kleenex. And, you know, we say Kleenex as a general term, but it wasn't specific, you know, to what we're talking about. Or we could say soda, or someone could say pop, and someone could say, well, they were drinking Kool-Aid. And so they'll discredit the whole conversation over unimportant details. Am I making sense? Have you ever met that person that mills over uh, minute details that are unimportant to the fabric of the speaker or the person telling the story? So those things are not valuable in that you being a listener. Also, focusing too much on details and missing the bigger picture, you know. So it's in the details that things can get nasty. You know, five people can see a crime or something committed in front of them, and you'll get five different stories. Each person, from their frame of reference or perspective, will focus on different details. Females may see something different than males may do. An older person may see something different from a younger person. A socioeconomic person versus a person that's in poverty will see something different. A blue collar worker may see something different from a white collar worker. And so it goes on and on and on. So from whatever our frame of reference in life is at, we may see some things different, and people will focus on the details of it, focusing too much on that based on where we come from, but we're missing the bigger picture because the listener is focusing on certain aspects of the details that is not the totality of the story or the message that really needs to come across. Am I making sense? So let's move on. And also, here's another bad habit of listening is ignoring what you don't understand. And I think we've kind of summed that up in the last four statements that we have. Okay, you ignore what you don't understand, ignoring what you don't like, ignoring what you don't want to talk about because you are not a good listener. So you're just going to ignore it altogether. So we don't want those to be the type of methods we continue to use and while we are being an active listener. And here's another one: pretending to listen. You know, some people have learned the skills of looking at a person in the eye, turning our attention to a person, turning everything off, facing them, and listening to them talk. But in their hearing, all they're hearing is blah, 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 blah. They are not hearing you. So we have learned to pretend that we're listening, but we're not. So, of course, that's a bad listening skill. We don't want to have that. So let's think about it. I gave you some of the good, and then I gave you some of the not good listening, active listening skills. Active listeners can help, being an active listener can help you in three areas in relationships. If you're an active listener, and in your relationships, it will only develop it to grow better, whether it's a husband and wife or romantic relationship. If you're an active listener and you are practicing the positive aspects of it, it can only increase it and make it better. your work relationships. If you are able to be an active listener, it will improve your relationships at work. It will also help you in social settings where it may be a group of people you don't know. But if you're an active listener and engaging and listening and allowing people to speak and being neutral, it will just cause for a better social interaction. You won't have that social anxiety, and you will seem approachable when people want to come and talk to you about certain things. Also, as an active listener, you become a great conversationalist because you will begin to know how to have the conversation that you need to have back to that person. Isn't that amazing? So, as a listener, you become a great conversationalist and you begin to develop better social skills in a variety of settings: work, relationships, social settings, large groups, all different types of areas. You'll be able uh, to blend in into those settings. And as I'm getting ready to make my final quote or perspective about being an active listener, um, just know that we have some building tools we can improve upon for our lives to make things better. We're going to have to be some listeners as we weather the storm and as we go through some of these uncertain times and challenges in our life. And just be mindful of that and go back, re-listen to this again, and engage in ways to improve how you're going to be a listener. It makes you even a better parent. I didn't even think about that as I did my notes. So you can even be a better parent if you become an active listener. Now here's the quote, the closing quote of this topic. Listening is often the only thing needed to help someone. So if you are an active listener, and you are engaging in the positive ways that we mentioned here, it may be the only thing that that person needs. So remember that we want to be helpful and not harmful, and we want to help and not hinder. Well, I'm out of time. Until next time, bye bye.